as you simultaneously are creating the thing that you want, it's vital to be getting in the groups of people who have done it before, even though it's probably the most uncomfortable thing that you will do. Business is the biggest personal development journey I think you'll ever sign up for, and you have to be ready and know what to do. I actually did have to leave every single person, including my family, behind to make a decision for myself that I knew was right for me.
What is the one thing that was like, this is never done?
I think that setting boundaries in a friend group seems crazy to people. Your network is really your safety net. So I just feel like when I take so many more risks because I know that I have people who will still love me in my life, whether I win or fail.
Welcome to Success Story. I'm your host, Scott Clary. The Success Story podcast is part of the HubSpot podcast network. HubSpot has been a huge supporter of the show since day one, and I chose to partner with HubSpot because they support entrepreneurs. At the end of the day, I'm an entrepreneur. A lot of people that listen to this show are entrepreneurs, and it's hard, and HubSpot creates solutions for entrepreneurs so it's not as difficult. One of the number one problems that all entrepreneurs have is keeping customers happy. It's one thing to acquire customers, keeping them happy, boosting customer satisfaction is a whole other can of worms. It's not easy, but there is an all new service hub from HubSpot, and it makes it infinitely easier to scale customer support and increase customer retention. Remember, the cheapest customer to acquire is a customer you already have. By bringing service and support together in one powerful platform, you can deliver the best experiences for your customers and your teams. You free up time for your reps, focus on complex issues because HubSpot has an AI-powered help desk. You proactively drive retention with customer health scores that keep your business ahead, stopping churn in its tracks, and give your entire go-to-market team the data they need to operate as one unified, powerful front. Also, you can easily support, strengthen, and grow your customer base. What's the point of acquiring customers if they all just leave? The secret's out. HubSpot's Service Hub is a game changer. Also, you can better connect with your customers and keep them happy. Visit HubSpot.com/service to do more for your customers today. Lori, thank you for coming on. I appreciate you for joining. So I want to start this with sort of a look back when you wrote, you wrote A Tribe Called Bliss in 2017. And I want to just start by looking where you're at now versus when you wrote that book and thinking about what would be one lesson, and we'll probably go into a whole bunch that you've learned over, 5 years? 5 years? That's a long time, my goodness. What would be one lesson that you've learned that you wish you put in that book?
Oh my gosh, this is a great question. I think how important it is while you're building something, and I did talk about this, but really understanding the environments that you're in. I talk a lot about how your environment is stronger than your willpower. And as you simultaneously are creating the thing that you want, just the fact that it's vital to be not only creating these groups that support you, but actually getting in the groups of people who have done it before. Like somehow figuring out how to put yourself in rooms with people who have done exactly what you want to do before, even though it's probably the most uncomfortable thing that you will do.
Because you must feel like a massive imposter being around people that have literally just done the thing that you're trying to do. So you really have to humble yourself.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. I get that. And when you think about putting yourself in these rooms, do you think that it's more useful? Because I have opinions on this, but this is not my show, so I'm curious. Do you think it's more useful to have people that have just done it or have advanced like far beyond and they've accomplished that 5 years ago and now they're exceptionally well connected and they've reached like sort of the pinnacle? Where do you think you should spend the most time? So like recently done or?
I mean, I think there's a lot more when we're thinking about how fast the landscape changes. I think it's more powerful to have someone who has recently done it. Just because if I'm thinking about what I'm doing right now, I'm about to release a product. Somebody who sold their company 5 years ago, while they do have some really deep, incredible insight, I'm sure, on team building and just what to look for in business and where to invest your time. I do think if it depends on what we're looking for. If I was asking more about like how to market the product or what was working right now, or, what hasn't worked recently, that's somebody who would be more recent. So it's kind of like there's wisdom and value, so much wisdom and value in both. Yeah. So I do think you have to go all over the board. And I think it's really powerful to be in a room with someone who's also doing it at the same time as you, who's like at the same exact level as you, because I think that having someone who understands what you're going through and being able to lock arms with somebody who's just as excited as you are, and almost a bit like, I think there's also power in being a little naive, because I think we're willing to take more risks on things that maybe other people wouldn't. You absolutely. I would have never gotten into this if I would have known what was all involved, but I'm so glad that I did. I'm so glad I was naive enough to start.
Well, yeah, because then, so I believe that if you commit 10 to 15 years of your life to anything, you're going to be some version of successful at it. But that's like a hard pill to swallow, because people don't want to look that far into the future, especially with like an instant gratification generation, right? It's hard to say like, I'm going to commit to anything for that long. So people that are, wise, farther along, people that have just figured it out, people that are doing it at the same time, this all makes sense for people that are like high performing individuals. When you look at some of the people that you had in your life, do you feel like these are common tropes and common tribes and circles and groups, or is this so out of line with how most people operate? Even if you look back to when you sort of did an audit of your circle and your friends, did you find that naturally you gravitated towards any of these types of people doing it 5 years ago? No, not at all.
No. So I'm from a really small town, and then in Upper Michigan. We were just talking about this. Most people, look, yesterday I was telling someone I was from Upper Michigan, and they pointed to Detroit area, and they were like, "Are you from here?" I'm like, "That is Lower Michigan. That's like a different state, essentially." So way up in Upper Michigan, really kind of felt like the middle of nowhere. And then you take a small town and you make it smaller, because I was raised in a more restrictive religion where I could only hang out with people who were in that congregation. So it's like small town, then the congregation was 100 people, so I could only hang out with them pretty much my whole life. So when you say different circles, like to me, even learning how to make other friends after I left that religion after 18 was like the hardest thing on earth, not to mention make friends who I thought were extremely smart and further along than me, and I didn't graduate high school. This was like the most unpleasant thought of my life, trying to learn how to create these different circles of people, because I felt like I didn't fit whatsoever.
So I think that's a pretty common feeling for most people. I think it's a pretty common feeling for adults. It's not easy to make friends. And I think we both have a hack, because we have a podcast, which is outside, maybe we're charismatic, who knows, maybe we're good at parties, but this has been by far the best networking tool like I've ever accidentally.
It's why I did it. It's literally why I did it, because I'm an introverted extrovert, and I need to bring the people to me, and I need it to be kind of on my terms in the beginning.
Yeah. I think we're very similar, actually. Yeah. So then if somebody is listening to this and maybe they haven't read your book yet, and they're super ambitious, and they realize, like, you hear you're the average of the 5 people that you surround yourself with, and they've heard this quote like so many times, and like, okay, Scott, shut up, I know, but how do I actually find those people? Because it's easier said than done. It's easier when I jump on a call every single week or twice a week or 3 times a week with somebody that has built this, sold their company for that, raised money for this, like is an influencer, is a PhD, is whatever engineer that exited for 100 million. Like, that's a wild group of people to pick from. Many people don't have that, especially in small town USA, Northern Michigan, 100-person congregation. You're talking to younger you, who's aspirational, who wants to go build something, change the world. How do you start?
I would go back and give myself the same exact advice of what I started to do. And in the beginning, you have to create like your virtual groups of people. You really do. So in the beginning for me, it was like, okay, well, I'm going to listen to people on podcasts, and that's going to be sort of my initial tribe, right? They don't know who you are. You're not really in a group, but you now have this group of people that you are learning from, that you're getting wisdom from. I remember I literally would listen to every single talk that Gabrielle Bernstein gave, every single podcast that Lewis Howes had. Like I was constantly listening to something or someone. And so for me, these became my friends in my head. They became my virtual mentors. And so there gets a place where you've listened so much and you're almost at this place where you're getting brave and you're like, okay, do they have something online or a group that I could go and join? And so one of the first things I did actually was with Jack Canfield way back. So we're going way back. And I ended up going to an event of Jack Canfield's and being like, okay, I just need to finally like go meet the people in person. And it was a 3-week event, but it was broken down into 1 week at a time throughout the year. And I can tell you, I think that was like the first door that opened for me of going, okay, I can't necessarily just go and make these groups myself, but I can figure out a way to pay to get in the rooms. And by the way, I did not have the money at the time. Like I had to go and create things to create this money in order to get in these rooms. So, you know, I can only give from my experience, but I have bought my way into these groups in the beginning, and I still do. I still do that. I still pay my way into the groups that I want to be in. And then from there, I've been able to make friends and create a ton of these little like subgroups and friend groups and business groups and things like that from that. But what happened is when I go to pay and be in these rooms, other people went to pay and be in these rooms. So it kind of weeds it out for you. They're serious people. They want the same thing as you. It's so much easier than what I had done before and going online and just being like, hey, it looks like we might be like-minded. Do you want to meet for a workout and go have a coffee? Which I did this, by the way. I did 50 friend dates in LA every single Monday.
You're wild for that, by the way. Good for you. Like that. That's so
I literally was like, meet me at Orange Theory because I'm going anyway on a Monday. And I'm like, we'll just go grab coffee for 15 minutes afterward. And so if I liked the girl, it would be longer. The date would be longer. If I didn't, it was like, we just grab our coffee and I would leave. But what I want to say about that is doing it that way. I really only have one friend from that like stayed in my life, but doing it like where you go into these groups where they are, you know what you're getting. It's going to be like-minded. They want to put money down because they're serious about it. They want other people to hold them accountable as well. I have lifelong friends from these groups that I went in, 10 years ago that are still in my life.
I think it's about just shortening like the time horizon to get the results, right? That's really it. You got to find out whether or not, I mean, we just mentioned how good a networking tool podcasts are. It took like 5-6 years for me to meet you, right? So it's not such a quick fix, but I mean, that's definitely one way. I've heard of other ways, like if you pay for like Equinox and the people around you are all going to be like kind of motivated, health conscious, but also you have to create the environment where people want to talk business and really get to the root of who you are. And if there's money, there is motivation to get shit done because nobody wants to waste their money they spend. So that's definitely one way to do it. But I always love figuring out how to build networks from the beginning, because once you start to build them or start to build tribes, there is like a little bit of like a snowball effect. But we're going to go into how to build friendships, how to build tribes, how to build circles and networks. And I know you have entire frameworks for that, but I want to still back it up a little bit. So you didn't have the easiest childhood. So speak to me about, we sort of touched on religion and we touched on the community you grew up in, but there are other difficult parts outside of just being very siloed. So there was a lot of, I guess, like bullying in your community when you were growing up. Maybe speak to me about some of those informative experiences and how they shaped you into who you are.
The bullying part is so interesting to me because being raised in the more restrictive religion, there were, from the podium, I was always told like, people are going to make fun of you because you're different. So it's almost like I knew I was going to get made fun of. And I knew that if I was doing this religion correctly, that was coming for me. So I actually had the unique perspective of like, yes, I'm getting bullied for not being able to do, the art project with the kids in the same room, or I'm the one while they're making a Christmas tree, I'm like cutting out a heart and they're like, what are you doing? And I can't eat the birthday cupcake that's getting passed around and they're weirded out by that. Like, but I knew that if I was, it's interesting. It was like, I knew that if I was being, like made fun of, I guess, I was like, oh, I must be doing it right. So that's an interesting perspective of like what you hear.
That probably actually set you up. That probably set you up for the rest of your life, because you can tune out the bullshit. You can tune out naysayers, trolls, whatever. You did it.
It for sure has. I have gained, so while it's like the religion is, I don't even like talk bad about it, because to be quite honest, it was a huge gift for me. I just don't believe it. And it's just not my beliefs anymore. But I've learned so much from it. I literally wrote the book because of, when we are in transition, because I had to transition out of the thing that essentially that was my life. That's all I knew. Mm-hmm. And so when you are transitioning out of everything that you've ever known, that is like world rocking. What do you do when you are going from who everybody thought you were to this new life? And like all of the people in your life, you have to leave behind sometime. Like for me, I actually did have to leave every single person, including my family, behind to make a decision for myself that I knew was right for me. And so that has informed everything that I have written about, that I talk about on the podcast, why I'm so passionate about creating these groups and finding these different rooms. Because whether you've had to leave a religion like me, or whether you've had to leave a marriage, or whether you are leaving a job, or whether all of a sudden you're, coming out to your family to tell them you just don't feel a certain way or believe a certain way or anything like that, you have to go create the support around this new decision, or you'll keep running back to your old lifestyle, no matter what. Like you'll just go back to acceptance and survival, because when you think about it in the way that our brains are wired for survival, like leaving your old tribe feels like death, because that's what your brain is trying to tell you.
It used to be
death. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Because you can't go out and survive on your own. You need that to survive. And so we are hardwired like that. So back to the bullying thing, it's weird because I had a unique perspective on it. And while it was challenging and it sucks in the moment, it's also like not permanent. And you kind of know you're doing something right is what I've taken from that experience.
After transitioning into new environment, new social circle, new tribe, obviously we're skipping a lot of time, but this is when you started to find fitness, and you started to not only find it in your own life, but you helped other people as well start to figure out mental and physical health and well-being. How do you think you made fitness is just a tool that you found. What is the lesson in transitioning successfully and joining another maybe different, I would say maybe healthier circle or group or tribe? Do you understand how fitness helped you make that transition? Was it because it was a distraction? Was it because it was something that helped you upskill yourself? I'm super curious, because if somebody, for example, and let's take a more common example, you have a whole bunch of friends that you had from college that are never going to leave your hometown. Like that's honestly, anybody that has like built anything significant has gone through this. So you realize that your friends don't share your aspirations. What was the lesson that you got from taking up fitness and taking that and like bringing it into your life that you would recommend other people look for in when they're trying to have like a soft landing in like a new group, new community? What makes it sticky, I guess, or what makes it, yeah.
Well, fitness runs the ways that you build muscle in strength and in fitness, all of the laws of fitness run parallel to life. So when you think about resistance training, when you are building your body, when you think about how you have to get stronger, it's essentially you have to tear down the muscle. And when you think about resistance training, it's like the amount of time you're putting that muscle under tension and the amount of weight that you are putting on that muscle in order to break it down so that it can rebuild stronger. So with resistance training, I always look at it, with life, the more resistance that is going on in your life, the more opportunity you have. I used to have a SoulCycle instructor who would always say, when she wanted us to turn up the knob, she would say, put more opportunity on your bike. And that meant if I want to use this class, like the thought is I can go and sit on a bike next to somebody. We do the exact same class, right? We go for 1 hour. We do the same class. If I keep piling resistance on my bike, I created way more opportunity for myself for that class to actually do something in my life. And so we were on the same bike. I just took the opportunity to view the resistance as something that could actually help me, where that person just kind of went through the motions and didn't do anything. So you can keep showing up in your life and you can have these same exact problems that everyone else has. But I have a feeling, Scott, that you and I look at these problems that are coming in as opportunities for us to grow and get better, instead of why is this happening to me over and over again? And when I would train people, it's exactly like getting, they have these goals. They're like, I want this body. I want to feel good. I want to feel strong. I want to feel confident. But when they go over to the weight rack, they go and pick something that's not going to change them because they're like, I don't want to do the heavy weights. I'm like, but the heavy weights are exactly the way. Like it's kind of like the obstacle is the way. The heavy weight, the heavy resistance, that problem that you keep having, that relationship that you have, that conversation that you don't want to have, like that is literally the way to every single thing that you want in your life. And so life is already giving us the resistance. We don't even have to go create it. Like we just have to realize that all of these little things are such a gift to go and become the person we want.
And the people that are successful, they lean into them repeatedly. They just keep leaning into them. Now, you can lean into resistance and it takes you to a certain spot. But resistance is different than rock bottom. And I mean, if I understand correctly, you were at one point kidnapped. Would you consider that to be the rock bottom? Like that sounds pretty shitty, but was there other factors that contributed to like the rock bottom moment in your life? Or was that sort of the epitome of everything's going wrong?
I mean, that probably much like your life and everybody.
You can tell the story too, by the way.
I've had multiple rock bottoms. I think that one was, so when I ended up leaving my religion, I was, 18 years old. I moved out with a bunch of girls who I had known from the religion. And I think that we were all at that point of, when you leave something very restrictive and you just go crazy, that's kind of the place we were at in our life. And we all went on and these were my, like, the girls that I grew up with, because mind you, there weren't a ton of people to pick from. So these were the only friends that I knew my whole life. And so we end up going on spring break. And what happens is a few days in, we end up going to this club and super busy, like one of the biggest clubs that were in Mexico. And we had met these guys from like the state, like a neighboring Midwestern state. So we hit it off with them. And we ended up going to the club with them. And so I have to use the bathroom in the middle of the night, or during while we're at this club, but the line, it's spring break. It's like going to be an hour. So I go down and I'm waiting and I come back up and one of my girlfriends who always got super drunk was gone. And I'm like, oh no, this is terrible. Like I said, where is she? Where'd she go? And the one of the guys was like, oh, so-and-so took her back. And I'm like, this is bad because she was drunk. This guy took her back. This is awful. I ran out of the club by myself and I'm going to go back to the hotel to make sure that she's okay. So instead of taking the public bus, I thought it'd be safer to take a taxi cab, which is not safer than public transportation. But I end up getting kidnapped for over 8 hours because he wants money and whatever else. And assaulted. And, at this point in my life, I've been through many therapy sessions and things to heal this, but it was the scariest moment of my life, but also extreme. I don't know if you've ever had a near like death thing that has ever happened to you. I had a moment where a voice just came in and said, this isn't it. Like, this isn't the end. Like I knew it in the middle of it. And so I don't even know how it happened, but I ended up starting to talk to him about my little brother, and what I didn't know I was doing. And I was asking him, do you have siblings? Do you have kids? I started talking to him like a human in the middle of this. Like we had gone full on assault to me starting to ramble on it and talk in the middle of it. And what I didn't know I was doing that I learned later is humanizing yourself in a situation like that. When they start to make you human and start to place you as like, oh, they're like me. They have similarities, like you trying to find similarities. What ended up happening is instead of whatever he was going to do, I don't even know, because he started to panic. Like, now what do I do with you after all of this? You don't have the money that I want. Like, what's going to happen? And he ended up agreeing to bring me back. And now this was after like 4 hours of going back and forth with me trying to convince him to bring me back to the hotel. And he literally ends up bringing me back to the hotel and with a knife to my neck on his lap. But he drops me off probably 2 blocks away. I'm not allowed to look back, the whole thing. But for me, that moment, I think was a huge moment for me, was that what happened the next day was clarity in my life of, I went and told my friends what had happened. And one of the girls who was my best friend said, I don't want to hear about it. If you don't talk about it, it'll go away. And in that moment, I just like stopped talking about it. But
that's super messed up.
So messed up, so incredibly messed up. And the other girl just didn't even, she was just partying spring break. So that was clarity for me of, wow, these aren't my friends. Like the people that I thought were my friends, they're not my friends. And so that made me really dive into, it's like, even though they were still my roommates, that made me start thinking in my life, like, who are the people I want in my life? Who am I? I don't want to be this person. Now, it took me years after that, probably like 3 years to really clean that up and get clear and do all the things. But I did really stop hanging out with those people and started going to the gym really frequently, started to ask the bigger questions in my life. There were some other rock bottoms, but I think that was the one that woke me up to go, these are not your people. So I don't think you need that experience to look around your life and go,
praying that nobody does. Praying
that no one does. But I think you can say, if I had an experience like that, who would the people in my life be that would grab your hand and go, oh my God, we're in this together. Whatever you need, let's figure this out. And that's huge clarity of either where you need to start putting your energy or where you need to leave, like where you need to cut yourself off.
One of my favorite quotes that you said is, you can't rob someone of their rock bottom. What does that mean?
Well, do you happen to be a people pleaser at all, Scott, or have you ever?
Like too much. Yeah. Because I think we have the same personality. So like, let's just make assumptions going forward.
Okay, I'm like, so you're like me in this regard. So there's a few examples of this. I think I want to start with your own rock bottom. Like, I think in my life, I've tried to, it's almost like we're so afraid of hitting a rock bottom. We're so afraid of something failing. We're so afraid of something being like the worst thing on planet Earth. And I can tell you that a few of my worst nightmares, like losing someone you're really close to, being kidnapped, losing everything, these have all happened in my life. And they have all actually been one of the pivotal moments that I am the most grateful for of everything that has ever happened. So if someone would have even robbed me of some of those moments, do I wish it happened? No. But did it wake me up to something? Did it wake me up to a part of myself or something that was possible for me that I didn't think was possible? Absolutely. So what happens is a lot of times in life, we try to soften the blow for people. And while that's totally natural, and it doesn't mean that we can't help people, there is a point of helping and then enabling where sometimes the most powerful thing that could possibly happen for that person is the rock bottom, is to have your back so against the wall that they have no choice but to go and try to figure out how to make more money, that they go and finally start leaning into that skill set that maybe they knew they could have if they just really honed it in and worked on it. So the other rock bottom was when Chris and I lost everything. It was 2008 in the recession, and he was doing mortgage and finance. And this is the point where
good job to have in 2008.
Was not good, because once that went, there were no other jobs. We're like, okay, what else can you do? And he's like, this is what I do. It's kind of gone. Okay.
That is a rock bottom. Different kind of rock bottom, but yeah.
So that's what we had lost. We lost our home. We lost our cars. We were $300,000 in debt. And in the Midwest, that was like $3 million at the time in 2008 is what it felt like. And that rock bottom woke me up to my entire purpose. And before that, I wasn't willing to face like my anxiety and panic attacks. And I was too afraid to go and do what I wanted because I didn't graduate from high school. So I had so much shame around that I wouldn't even try to apply to different things. And that one really, it forced me into personal training. It forced me into opening my own gym. It forced me into asking people to be clients. And that never would have happened if we wouldn't have had to do it.
That's so interesting how every time something like truly horrible happens, like you said, it's not, there's no, you didn't want it to happen, but like it actually pushes you to a level that you probably wouldn't have reached without that thing happening.
And if someone would have been there, like if my parents would have had money to give me during that time, I would have never become the person that I am today, who I'm living fully. I feel I'm living fully in my purpose. And that is like, you can't replace that feeling. And if I would have had that money, I would have just gone and done something else that felt easy. And I'm just grateful for that.
Yes, this is another quote that I really, really liked. You have a lot of good one-liners, by the way. But anyway, there's another quote that I really like. Without those really hard times, you don't get the euphoria on the other side. So you don't realize how good you have it or how good you've even come unless you've hit that rock bottom. You don't appreciate. And when you don't appreciate, you take things for granted. And when you take things for granted, it's funny how they seem to leave very quickly. So I think that's also, it's like this very subconscious, it's very subconscious, but I think it forces you to respect what the universe gives you. And I think that's actually a very important thing when you're trying to, like it translates into very tactical, like you're not reckless. You can be audacious in your goals, but you're not reckless. So if money comes, you're not reckless with it. If opportunity comes, you're not reckless with it. And that is like a very smart, savvy, sound business mindset to adopt, right? And you don't get that. I mean, this is why pick a high income individual that got money and never really had to work as hard. So like anybody who got money who's working for it worked hard, but say like a lottery winner, for example, that's why they lose their money.
Yeah,
they never had
exactly why.
Yeah, exactly. They never had they never had rock bottom, hopefully not, but also they never really understood what to do with that sort of that gift that the universe has given them. Like it hasn't translated because you've never gone through all the shit and all the I'm blanking on the word, like you're not going through all the different like steps it takes to get there. So it doesn't mean as much to you, and then you screw it up more often than not. This is why I think that like easy success never lasts. Like I think that easy success, it's so fleeting. Even people that, again, I've seen, for example, even influencers that, for example, went viral. Not a lot of them capitalize on that virality and turn it into like a sustainable business. A lot of them, it's like a flash in the pan, and they don't turn into a Kim Kardashian. They turn into, I made a little bit of money, I'm relevant for a period of time, and then I'm gone. When realistically, if they had gone through all the steps that normally would take to get to that level of fame or influence or wealth, they'd be very good at maintaining that level or that status. But they don't, because it's so quick, and then it leaves just as quickly.
It's like appreciation for the journey and who the journey turns you into. And you can't gain that appreciation for what the journey can actually do for you if it happens fast. And so I think what makes it, because I'm processing out loud with you right now.
No, I'm thinking through too. Like I'm thinking, like I love the concept of rock bottom, but that one quote about euphoria on the other side, I've never thought of it that way. I've always thought of rock bottom as a place where you can't go any lower. So that's when you are forced to build and you're forced to grow. But the euphoria on the other side creates this perspective of why the journey is so important, because you see the dichotomy between the lowest of lows and the highest of highs. And you also hear that too, like, oh, there's no finish line, like embrace the journey, like love the journey, whatever. But like, what does that really mean? It's like, you're really appreciating all the shit you're going through to get to where you have to be.
Mm-hmm. I think for anybody who's going through anything right now, it's just really the thought of like, you're just in, like, you're in the hardest point of like the resistance training, and what you get to, who you get to be on the other side. Like, you don't even understand, like, people listening don't understand how cool they actually are, and how like resilient, and how it's gonna change their perspective on everything and everyone. It's like it's an unlock. Like, rock bottom truly unlocks a version of you that you didn't even know existed. Like, the most admired person in your life, like, you will feel that way. All of a sudden, you can actually become the most admired person in your life when you get through huge challenges, and you walk through the world different when you know what you're capable of. Even if you're capable of just being able to get through something, you're really a different person.
This is why I actually like to remove people from pedestals. And I don't like when somebody puts an influencer or a business leader or somebody on a pedestal, because it almost, the way that I've been successful in my life is I look at somebody and what they've done, and then I reverse engineer how they got there. And I realize that they're only human, and I can map out the steps. But to see them as human and not above who I am or what I can become, I feel like that's not a normal way to look at somebody. I feel like most people look at people that are killing it in their career, and they have X amount of followers, or they sold a company for X amount of dollars, and you put these people on a pedestal, and you default to the mindset of, oh, that's for them, not us, or that's for them, not me. And I don't know how to retrain people to understand that nobody is that special. It's hard work and time and a little bit of luck, but no one's that special and nobody's that different. But, well, do you have a solution for that? I don't know. I don't know.
I'm thinking this is why when two podcasters get together, it's a problem.
Yeah, right.
We're like, let me think on that one. For me, I'm trying to think right now, what made me think that I could go into CPG, because that felt crazy to me. I was like, oh, I would look at these women who had sold companies or who started these incredible lines, things that I actually went through this. And I think for me, it is exactly what you said. I would humanize them. Like, I would find ways to humanize them and either look for stories or podcasts on their journey. And really, I wanted to hear about what it really felt like. And because I'm a huge podcast listener. So they just get on and they break it down, like what it actually looks like. And for me, it is taking them off that pedestal and going, well, they actually had a really hard time. Wow, they actually failed a company twice before they got this one. Okay, that's normal. But not just hearing it. The thing is we can listen to podcasts and hear it and skip over it. But I think the power of what we can do as listeners is actually go, okay, they lost that company and they just went on and went to the next sentence. But imagine what that actually felt like for them to lose a company, to lose money, to have investors be upset with you that they knew, they got friends and family involved. Like, that's a big, and if you are a human, you feel that. Like, that is not something you're going to recover from quickly, but they just kept going. And so for me, I find stories, I find proof. I just look for the proof everywhere I can. And I'm not looking for why they're better than me anymore. I'm looking for why I can be like them. Like, why is it possible for me? And so I think even taking that question instead of looking at your mentors and going like, oh, this is why I can't do it. Because I think unconsciously we do that sometimes.
Yeah.
I think if we just go, okay, show me the proof of why they're human. Like, show me why they're like me. Show me why I can do this. So I go into everything with a totally different, you'll find it. We find what we're looking for every single time.
I just want to take a second and thank the sponsor of today's episode, HubSpot. Now, HubSpot has an incredible podcast network, the HubSpot Podcast Network. My show, Success Story, is part of it. But if you love great podcasts, you have to listen to Imperfect Action, hosted by Steph Taylor. She cuts to the chase. She dishes out actionable strategies on online marketing, content creation, social media, and more. Steph is your marketing obsessed friend. She's been in the trenches for years. She shares what works and what doesn't, so you skip that costly trial and error. If you crave friendly, educational content that gets results, Imperfect Action is your new favorite podcast. Check out Imperfect Action wherever you get your podcasts. Because it's easy to have this victim mentality, as like the world didn't, deal me the hand of cards that I wish I had. But I think that, like, again, you're looking for proof points as to why people that have accomplished it are similar to you. You're also probably, and tell me if you do this, do you look at your past and you start to like map out your wins and your successes, and you help validate how incredible you are through these like micro wins that you've like stacked up over your lifetime? Because I think that a lot of people discount micro wins too, and they only focus on failures, and they forget how many times they've won and how many times they've beat the odds and how many times they've absolutely killed it. And when you look at the resume of all the times you've won in your life, which I think for most people is significantly more than the times I mean, like even being born is like a phenomenal astronomical probability. But how many times you've won across the course of your life, it would almost be like that gives you like I say delusional mindset to feel like you can accomplish anything because you've already won so much. Every job you've gotten, every dollar you've made, every relationship you've built, everything. It's a win in life. If you're alive, you're winning every single day. But nobody stacks those wins in their head, and they really don't appreciate them. So I don't know if you feel like you do that. I know that you speak on self-awareness a lot. I don't know if that can be tied into it a little bit.
I actually do it, and we do some exercises around it. So I like take it to the next level.
Okay, good. Listen, so all of my like ramblings are just like me trying to figure out how I operate. So I like when somebody actually like tactically breaks it down, because then somebody is like, Scott, I just need a playbook. This is why we have Lori.
Okay, well, I have a lot of ramblings that you can help me with as well. Yeah. So for this one, we like grossly underestimate how much we actually grow in a year. And so I think the other thing is that you were saying is we focus so much on where we lost that we just we skip over the wins. So something that we do, my husband and I, on the new year, but we also do this in between. So I'll share a couple things that are fun that you guys can try. So every new year, what we do is we go back through our photo albums and our calendars, and we sit with each other and we go month by month. So I'll be like, okay, in January, and I'll read what I did. Oh my God, I spoke here. I can't believe, but I didn't just say I spoke there. I spoke here. I can't believe I got invited there because the year before, remember when I was talking about it and it happened? Oh my God, like actually get into the feeling of you wanted this at one point. Go back to that version of you. And you guys might think this sounds corny, but it freaking works. Like it actually works. And we have done this every year for like 10 years. And I'm telling you, it just accelerates every single year. And so go back through the month with if you don't have a partner, go back with a group of friends. It's super fun. Just be like, let's celebrate what happened last year. So go through month by month and celebrate each other's wins. It's so fun to do it together. And then what we'll do is sometimes we'll write those big wins on the back of the vision board that we're creating. And then the next year you have all the wins that you can look over through all the years of all of these things that you've done and you've been winning at. And when I'm feeling really bad, which, is semi-frequently lately, just starting a new company.
I get it, yeah.
We go on gratitude walks. So we do something called the Power 9. We've done this. This has been like 15 years that we've done this. Every single day we do 3 things we're grateful for, 3 things we're excited about, and 3 things that we're manifesting. And so that just reminds me that even during really hard times, there's always really good things that are going on at the same time in your life. There's really good things that you are excited about. But we tend to, we were chatting before this, we tend to make what we do who we are. And there's so much of your life that doesn't actually involve like your business or the things that you feel you're failing at. And I think, when we look at life as a whole, like how are you doing as a parent? How are you doing as a friend? How are you doing taking care of yourself? How are you doing making yourself proud? And so those are categories that I bank more on now than I used to. So it's these little tiny things to go back to like stacking things. You have to make the little things the big things. Because they are. You have to make the little things in life the big things. And so this is a huge focus for me is how can I amplify the small things like my walks that I get to take, my voice notes to my girlfriends that I was telling you about, because they're just these little moments of connection. looking back and looking at the wins that happened over the last week, even though there were a lot of failures as well. So that this has been life-changing for me, because even though things don't feel great in certain arenas, there's still great things happening.
I love it. You called your podcast Earn Your Happy. What does that mean to you, Earn Your Happy? That's an interesting sentence.
It's such a good question. So I used to really struggle with like mood, anxiety, and depression. And I used to think, I don't know if you remember, just like in spirituality, it's like, oh, you don't need to earn anything. You just get to be happy. Like, we're all worthy of being happy. I'm like, I get it, but I don't quite get it.
Yeah.
And so I come from a family that was not very active. Everyone in my family was really overweight. We didn't really exercise. I had to go and figure that all out myself, which I had high anxiety. We didn't eat well. I had all of the things that go with not moving and not eating well. And I thought it was me. And so what Earn Your Happy is the understanding that there are things that we need to do as humans to give ourselves the opportunity to be happy. And that is eat well. That is move your body. That is connect with other humans. That is try every single day to create your purpose, whatever that looks like. And so if I'm not feeling great, not that I think we should all feel great all the time, but I do think that you can feel pretty good for most of the day, that I have a couple things that I can check in with and go, did I earn that? Did I earn that emotion that I wanted? Did I do the things that helped me get there? And so the podcast is really like about all of those buckets, because I didn't want to just talk about one thing.
No, I love the concept of earning happiness. I see how like all the work that you do now, everything comes from your upbringing at the end of the day, doesn't it? It all shapes who you are, even if we don't realize it. Maybe there's a reason why people should go to therapy, to just figure out all the shit that happened to them when they were kids that made them who they are. When you think about, so we haven't even spoken really about like the main work that you've put out in the past, 6 years, which is the Tribe Called Bliss. And you speak about, touched on it, but we spoke about like mentors and who you should hang out with, but you actually have a framework for how to build out a tribe and how to sort of understand who you should spend your time with and who you shouldn't. And there's seven, what do you call them? The seven agreements for building connection.
I literally was like, what are they called again?
Yeah, I know.
2017 me. Okay.
Listen, it was a long ass time ago. You have to write more books. That's besides the point. You will write more books, I have no doubt, because I know you're going through life, you're going through business, and you're evolving, and then you'll probably write about the last 6 years, all the stresses and all the shit that you've learned. So I have a question for you, and the question is actually quite simple. Do you want to teach over very briefly or more thoroughly about tribes and 7 agreements and building relationships? I think is very useful, because I think that if somebody comes to this podcast and we don't even touch on it, they'd be slightly disappointed. Or there are probably new things that you listen. When I prep for podcasts, I did listen to older podcasts. So there are probably new things that you speak about that I don't even know that you speak about. So we can also go into those, like new lessons, new ideas, a new thesis you have on life. We can go into that as well. So I will let you choose, but I'll give you the floor. Where do you want to take it? Because we can go either way.
So I can kind of touch on, because even what I do now still relates to that, to building these communities. So I think now I talk way more about business, but I talk about networking and relationships in terms of like your business, like being able to build your business and accelerate what you are doing. So in the beginning, when I was starting to really want to get into throwing personal development events and writing books and speaking, this was like the beginning. I was not doing this. I was coming from a fitness background. I worked my way up to having a really large online fitness membership. At the time, it was like 2,500 monthly members. And it seemed crazy to decide to shut that down, because it was running great, to go and do these other things that I wanted to do. And that was kind of that that was kind of my transition and journey into business and personal development, because I was feeling way more called into that than I was fitness, because even though I loved fitness and it was such a foundation for me and it's never going away in my life, I just learned that fitness was the beginning of the spiritual cracking open. And so once I went through this with a ton of women, what happened is not only was I wanting to completely go somewhere else, but even the women that I had worked with for a long time were now starting to go, what's next? I know I have more. This fitness journey just cracked me open to everything else. And now I want more. What do we do? How do we make money? How do we, find these different groups of people? So the book, in the beginning, what I did was we put together, like I told you, I had gone to the Jack Canfield event, and he had mentioned something in passing that he had written in his book, The Success Principles. And he had kept talking about this mastermind that he was a part of. And that word was pretty new to me at the time. And so at the end of that year, he gave us a challenge to put together a mastermind from the room that we were in. And I was like, I didn't see people who were kind of doing exactly what I wanted to do, who were like my age group and just exactly what I wanted to do. So I was like, okay, I'm not going to do it in this group, but I'm going to go find women who want to be speakers, who want to write a book, and who want to expand their career. So I went online, and there was another woman who was looking for kind of the same thing. I knew her in passing. I don't even know how our communities kind of interconnected, but we had messaged each other hey, I'm looking for an accountability partner. I just went to this thing. They call it a mastermind. They say it's great with 3 to 4 people. Do you know anybody else who would want to do this thing? And so this thing turned into 8 years long of 3 of us who had never met before, but knew that we had the same goals. We would meet every other week for 1 hour. We were just like, hey, are we committed to this? And there's so much that went into that, to being able to meet for 8 years. Let me tell you, I wrote a book on it for a reason, because just showing up and being consistent. And let me tell you, having to be accountable to 2 other people who are also doing big things was you will face off with your demons. So that was the initial how this all started and how I started writing about it. And from that as well, I was doing personal development events, and I was breaking these women out into these groups. I was doing the similar things that we were doing on these calls in these 3-day, Tony Robbins style retreats, where we would break them into groups, have them connect deeply, ask a certain set of questions to each other, share, do all the things, and voila, all of a sudden these women are creating these incredible relationships and breakthroughs. And still to this day, we have so many best friends, business partners, insane things that have come from these events of creating these little groups for people where they are supported and committed to each other. And they have a toolbox around what happens when you, things get weird. What happens if someone disappoints you? What happens if there's gossip in the group? What happens if someone comes in with really high expectations and you're like, whoa, that's not my expectation. So it confronts every weird thing that was happening for me in female relationships that either made me run or made me want to run, made them want to run, made us not want to come together. It really is relationship 101 for friendships, but also partnerships. And I didn't have those tools. So I really messed it up a lot in the beginning. And that's why I wrote the book, is all of these tools are the things that I've used that have now helped me so much in business. If I didn't understand these communication tools, I swear to you, I would have no dollars. Because I do think it's relationships, and I think it's, connections. And of course you have to be business savvy, but I really think it is your ability to lead a team and communicate, and how you're communicating to your customer. And there's just, business is the biggest personal development journey I think you'll ever sign up for. And you have to be ready and know what to do. So the book does translate, and these groups translate into the work I do now and into these different business events I do.
There are obviously, there's a lot in the book. There's 7 agreements, but you mentioned a few that included honest communication, dropping expectations. If you're going to pick, I don't know, you pick the most, I don't want to say impactful, because I don't want you to have to rank your ideas from best to worst. But What I mean is, what are the things that people have the most trouble with? What is the one thing that was like, this is never done? This is the one thing that moved the needle for me the most. That is, I guess it's like it's something that people take for granted, or a misconception about communication, relationship building, tribe building, whatever it is.
I've got two. I think boundaries and expectations are really big ones. For my life and for what I've found, like in other people's lives. I work with mostly women, like when we do events and stuff. So I think that setting boundaries in a friend group seems crazy to people. They're like, oh my God, I can't imagine. Like, that seems really like strict. Oh my gosh.
Describe what that means too. Like, paint the picture of what that looks like.
So what happens is, let's say you're going to start one of these groups and you find these two other people and they're like, great, let's meet every other Thursday at 7 a.m. for 1 hour. And this is what it's going to look like. There's this format. It's going to be 20 minutes each. There's going to be a person who times it. No one can go over. You're never late on the calls. The calls never run over time, because then what happens is someone's going to get resentful because they can never plan around it, or they're always late to pick up their kid, or whatever that looks like. And if you miss more than 2 in a row, then you're just not in the group anymore, unless it's obviously a huge family emergency or something. Yeah. Because we want people who are committed. And to a lot of people, that scares the shit out of them. They're like, no, like that's a lot. That's too much. Like, that doesn't even feel good. And I'm like, okay. And then that's not necessarily what I'm looking for right now. And I think for people to say exactly what they want and exactly what they're looking for and set rules and parameters and have boundaries around it, I think that is like, it goes against what we think is nice, or what we've been raised to think is nice. Like, oh, you should understand, or, oh, you should, give them the opportunity of the doubt. Is that the right word?
Benefit of the doubt.
Benefit of the doubt.
Yeah. But I know so it's like, and you're Midwest, so you're super nice.
Oh my gosh. Painfully nice. Like, this was so hard for me to be like, this is what we said, and this is not what's working. And so the result that we all want is not happening. And so people really, really struggle with holding like that boundary, or holding that expectation around what they want. And then expectations are huge, because, so for me, this one translated, there's a million different ways that this can translate. But when I first really started looking for girlfriends, and when you're older, this is like, oh my God, how do you even make friends? I had this best friend checklist in my head, and I didn't know that I had it. So maybe anyone who's ever been single before can understand. You have this idea in your head of what you want. And the second someone kind of falls out of that, you're like, I don't know, I'm not really interested. And so I wanted this girl to work out. I wanted her to be adventurous and fun. I wanted her like wine, but not too much. Like, she couldn't be too crazy. Like, I wanted her to be like fun and funny, but also want to go super deep. Like, she had to be into like what I was once in a while. So fashion sometimes. I didn't even know this was going on. So when somebody would like not fall into these things, I would write them off. I'm like, God, I'm just not really, I'm not this, I can't lean into, they're like this, or they like that, or they didn't like this, or yeah, but they don't, what are we going to do in the winter? She doesn't snowboard or go on trips. It's so boring. Or, oh, she only wants to talk about business, or, oh, she only likes to adventure. So guess what? I had 0 friends still, like after 2 years of trying this, because I had a checklist. So the expectation of nobody can be everything for you. No one person can be everything for you. You have to collect people. And when you do this, when you see the thing, when you find just find the one gift that they bring into your life and focus on that. And then go find the other person who, like, I'm an adventure person. I love to adventure, but I don't like to just adventure. That's not my life. So I had one girlfriend who always wanted to surf, and I was like, I can't just like always surf with you. But now I'm so obsessed with her because she's the girl that I'm going to go to when I'm like, let's just adventure, and I don't want to talk about anything else. And now I have my business friend who I know is actually incapable of not making everything about business. And now I'm obsessed with her. I don't have to like be irritated that that's all she wants to do, because when I can put them in these categories of who I know they are, they can show up so incredibly them and help me in a way that I can't even fathom in my life. And I appreciate them so deeply. And also, this is life-changing if you are in a romantic relationship, because not only, it's like Chris doesn't have to be everything for me anymore. My husband doesn't have to listen to me when I want to analyze the shit out of everything for the 200th time. I've got my best friend, Lindsay Schwartz, who's going to be like, say it one more time. You know, you need to process again. Where he's like, he's heard it once and wants to fix it. Like, it has changed my entire life.
You can take it a step further. I think even, so the boundaries that I think people don't set, they are like communication boundaries, like how much you text, how much you call, do you have to respond right away? And obviously it gets more sensitive with like a romantic partner, but I think business partner, employees, friends, nobody sets boundaries, and we're always on 24/7. And even friendships can be draining if you're sending 6-minute voice notes, right? and the person feels guilty that they didn't respond right away. That's not good either.
Totally. So with one of my favorite things to do is, if you're like, you know, where do I even know where to start with boundaries, is you just have to ask yourself, where are you feeling most resentful in your life? So this might bring up, like, it might bring up people's names. It might bring up, you know, most likely it's going to bring up somebody's name. You'll probably have 1 to 3 people where you're like, oh, I'm so resentful of this. And typically, I believe majority of those relationships could be saved by you going, okay, what am I saying yes to that every single time I'm getting resentful of this person because I haven't set a boundary, or I haven't told them that that's not okay, or I haven't told them, like, hey, I'm just not going to pick up your call if it's before 9 a.m. because that is my gym time. Like, those are all things that we don't have to carry around and feel resentful. In fact, I think not setting boundaries is you sabotaging relationships in your life.
Wow. Because you could save the relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Because setting
but
the boundary.
But it's too hard to set the boundary. Mm-hmm.
Well, it's hard, but then there's going to be a point where the relationship is so stressful and you're so resentful that I actually believe there is a point where setting the boundary becomes a more comfortable thing right before the relationship is broken. But it's in that moment that you choose to not set it, and then you break the relationship. I think that's what happens.
Mm-hmm.
Because the feeling of resentment will overcome you, and then the hard conversation no longer feels that hard when you're actually like aggressively pissed off at a person. It doesn't feel bad anymore, because then you have anger driving that conversation, which is not good anyways, but you could still have the conversation and you won't feel as apprehensive about it.
Oh my gosh, I have so many moments of this, like, but we have this really high performing friend that you probably know, like super high performer, and we end up moving like next door to this person, like very, like we see them in the neighborhood all the time, and he ends up asking us to dinner, and like we have this incredible dinner with him and his wife, and we're like, oh my God, that was so much fun. And at the end of the dinner, he goes, look, I like you guys, but if we're going to be friends, you have to know that I probably won't do this again for a year. Like, you can't, I probably won't answer texts. I'm terrible. This is the kind of friends that I have. We need to be able to drop in and pick up where we left off. And if you want that kind of friendship, I am all in. And if not, I can't do it. We were like, great, that's how we are. This is wonderful. But I was like, that is next level. Like, he couldn't even leave the dinner without telling us, because he didn't want to feel. And that's what he said. He's like, I can't even feel any sort of like, I have to do something, because he was that at his capacity in life that he's like, I won't even let anything in. Like, I thought that was so next level, like refreshing honesty, that Chris and I like high-fived after that. And we're like, we should be this way. This is awesome.
Yeah, that's intense. But you know what? Nobody's offended.
I was not offended at all.
No one's.
I was grateful for the, I was grateful to witness what that looked like what that could look like, because I wasn't offended. The way that he said it was so like, I want you in my life, but this is the only way this will ever work. And so for me, I took that as a lesson of, where could I actually gain something, or gain a relationship that I'm avoiding? Because I do this all the time. I avoid where I know I could be girlfriends with someone or couple friends with people. But I'm scared they're going to want too much. And that's not where I'm at in my life right now. So that was really refreshing. And I've used things like that, just like upfront, being like, hey, I'm not that person who's going to respond back to text right away or whatever that looks like. And that just kind of, it takes you off the hook.
And then it also gives you an opportunity to see how that person respects you and respects what you stand for. And I think that's also very telling.
Oh my gosh. So I'm sorry, I'm going off because we were just both podcasters and this is such a good conversation.
Go on.
So I just interviewed Trent Shelton and we were talking about this, and he said, I wrote it down. He said, if a no makes somebody upset in your life, it probably was never meant, they were probably never meant to be in your life. Like if you setting a boundary, if you saying no for you, like if it's truly something that gives you peace in your life and helps you be more you and keep the things that are sacred, in your life, then that person would have eventually burned out of your life anyway, or it's a good thing because they weren't for you anyhow. So it's just such a good reminder for me. If no turns people off, they were not meant for you.
And how many relationships, oh my God, like I was going to say, how many relationships last? I keep thinking about it in like a romantic context, because those are the ones where you have trouble saying no the most. But I think, of course, friendships, business partnerships, people that you should have fired, maybe times you should have fired yourself from the company because they weren't serving you. Like these types of relationships, they can last in a non-romantic context for years. In a romantic context, I think for like lives.
Yeah. And you know what's interesting about that, as you were talking, thinking,
and I think that's when people start cheating and stuff like that too, because they don't want to have hard conversations, so it's easier to sneak away. And
and so I think that's where, so thinking of in terms of like romantic relationship, I think, if the no, because maybe someone's thinking, okay, well, that just lets somebody have bad behavior and never do the things, never compromise or maybe do the things that people want. But if no turns people off and makes them upset, that's one thing. But no is also an opportunity for the other person to have a conversation around, hey, when you said this is how this made me feel. I understand that this is a boundary, but maybe we could compromise here. So I do still think it holds true. Like if no makes people upset and turns them away, that's not a great person, because you do want at least somebody to open up conversation around.
Correct. Yeah. That's very good. Very, very good. Okay. What else? What other final bits of wisdom? Or if there's more on this, but I think there's like a perfect lesson to take away from this show. I'm just thinking about it in real time, which is the worst thing to do when you're on a podcast, because I want to sit in it, but I can't because I got to keep talking to you. But I think it's a very powerful idea. What are some of the more current ideas or concepts or lessons that really mean a lot to you, that you've sort of included into your content, included potentially into a new book idea that has not been announced or released yet, but you're just like ruminating on things that you've learned over the past 6 years that are like hyper top of mind outside the stuff we've just sort of spoken about for the last hour and a bit?
It's just, this stuff is following me. So it's just getting like more in depth and deeper, meaning your network is really your safety net. So I just feel like when I take so many more risks because I know that I have people who will still love me in my life, whether I win or fail. These groups that I've created and these girlfriends and these friends that we have in our life are truly, they are my launch pad. They're my crash pad. They're my safety net. They are the thing that I'm willing to take big leaps because of the people that I have in my life. But in order to get these people, you have to be willing to be vulnerable and speak what you need. And that, I think that's the journey, is like they are human beings and friendships and business partners and whatever else, like they are just constantly reflecting back to you, like what you need to work on more. And, I went, the whole safety net thing, just like kind of came to me because we were doing this couples mastermind, and we were trying to push people to their edges. So we're like, I don't know, let's like make everybody do trapeze class. Well, I don't love heights, and I had to do it too. So why I did this to myself, I'm not sure, but it's just kind of what I do. So I'm on the ground before I go up there, and I'm like, I can't believe I'm doing this. Like, why am I doing this? But the thing that made me do it is, before you even climb this tiny ladder to a very high trapeze bar, they go around and they want you to help them check the safety net with them so that you are confident and you know that it's secure when it falls. And then they also teach you how to fall. Like, before you even go up there, it's not if you fall. It's like, okay, here's the proper way to fall, because you're going to. And I think that
Here's a metaphor.
like, well, yes, exactly. And I did the wonkiest fall ever. I even did it wrong, but it was fine. But it was just such a powerful moment for me of, wow, I'm willing to go and do something that like I would never do, because we went and checked this safety net. And like, where in life am I securing my safety net before I take these risks? And for me, before I raised money, before I decided to start a company, like, there were things I did in my life to be like, okay, I have this group and I know that they can help me through learning how to raise money. Okay, they told me they would direct me. This is great. Okay, I have this group who said, hey, when you get to this point, don't worry, it's going to feel like this, but I've got these people, we can talk about it and we'll go through this. I'm like, all right, safety check number 2. Like, I had these different places where I knew I wasn't just free falling, Yeah. I was like, I'm going to have some form of net there. It doesn't mean that I'm going to be successful. It just means I have these points where it's like, I also had friends who failed companies. So I knew, like, it's bad, but you get through. You also get through. You don't die. And when people don't have those reference points, you think of dying. You really do. You think of like the worst case scenario all the time. And the thing that saved me the most is I allow myself to go to worst case scenario. Like, I'll go to the ultimate worst case scenario. What's the worst case? I lose everybody's money. They never want to work with me again. I can't make money after this. Everybody thinks I'm a fraud. People think I spent money on, like, I'll go there. Okay, great. Like, could I live with that? Do I know that, are those things true or not? Could I prove they're not true? Obviously. Great. Okay. You will survive. Do you still think you could go and create something else? Yes. Do I have these people who still love me? Yes, I do. Okay, let's leap. And so I don't think people go far enough down that road and securing their nets and getting these groups of people. And that's why they don't ever start. And that's why they're too scared to finish. And that's why they don't even take the leap, is because they don't feel safe. Like, why would you,
It's like people have this concept of failure, but they don't actually explore it enough. That's really it. They're scared of even exploring the concept of failure, which is what blocks them from even starting, which is so ironic. Amazing. Okay. I want to, first of all, what are people looking for what are people looking forward to, in the future? What new products, where do you want to point people, social, website? You have a new CPG product out as well. We'll put everything in the show notes, but just talk about where you're going in the future, what people can sort of look out for.
Well, thank you so much for having me on. This was so much fun.
This was very good. This is very good.
So I am taking a big leap into something new for myself, and it is a product, and it is a skin routine you can drink. So essentially it is a powdered packet that you can put into water, because I'm like a toddler. I need flavored things to drink more water. And I know water is like one of the most essential things I can do for my personality and my mood in my life. And I've always been that way, except one day I was like, what am I putting in my water 3 times a day? I decided to explore it, and I have a health and fitness background, and I'm very habitual and ritualistic. And I thought, what if I could make this better? Like, what if I could make this around some things? What if I could make this so that I didn't feel as bloated? And what if this could help my skin? And what if this helped me drink more water? So that's exactly what I did, is I just improved something that I already loved and made it really speak to myself and my community, because I didn't feel like there was something that really said, like, this is for you. And so I created what I wish existed, and I'm really excited about it. It's called Glossy. Again, it's a skin routine you can drink. We have an amazing clinically studied probiotic in there, just super awesome ingredients that I'm like, I need to take more of this, but I'm not because I hate taking pills as well. And that is at getglossy.com. It's GETGLOCI.com. And we are creating what I want to be like a very sought after ambassador program, because I'm taking my network marketing background, but kind of making it more fun.
Okay. I don't know much. So network marketing is one of the best hacks to build a business if you can get people to evangelize your product. It's not easy to do, but if you can do it right,
Yes.
It's amazing. But good luck.
Yes.
It's not easy.
Thank you. Well, we had a team of 200. I think we had 265. We still do 265,000 people in our downline, and we've been in network marketing for 15 years. And like, so team, getting people hyped, getting people excited, recognizing people. It's like my favorite thing. Getting people together. That's my favorite thing.
Combined with like a very good product. At the end of the day, if you have which is most important.
That is everything. Yes, you are correct. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No, I'm absolutely amazed at how people build like these massive downlines and these massive network marketing companies, because this is what every marketer's dream is, to get like this viral word of mouth, basically. And it is so hard to accomplish, and it's so expensive to accomplish. But if you have a great product and you can get people excited about evangelizing your brand that way, my God, it's like very strong. Very, very strong marketing strategy.
Like, that's where my energy is right now, is around like, what are the incentivizations we're playing with? You know, not just money, but recognition, and also like events, and getting them on like these different trainings or experiences that they wouldn't ever get access to. So we're playing with all of those levers, like trying to really remember back, like what would make me take action. And those were the main things.
Awesome. Good luck. I'm excited to watch this. So we'll put that link in the.
I'll keep you posted.
Yeah, for real. No, I've never been in the network marketing world, but I've seen some companies, and like Ray from Monat, like he's down in South Florida. He's a really good friend. Like he's killed it, obviously. So I see examples of how this works, but it is an absolute beast, and you have to figure out everything in the comp structure and the trainings and like you said, the everything. But if you get it right, it is the biggest marketing hack if you can figure it out. Yeah, of course. Okay. So, socials, where are you on social? What's your Instagram? What's your website?
Everything is just Lori Harder. So just my name everywhere.
Okay. That's so easy. Okay. So at Lori Harder, you will probably release books in the future, but nothing new yet. So if people want to read, they're still going to A Tribe Called Bliss. And just to finish it up, 2 questions I ask everyone. First question, looking back, what would you tell your 20-year-old self?
Buckle up. Nope.
It's a valid point. Yeah. It's going to be a ride for sure.
What would I tell 20-year-old self? Probably, I think I would have really sat down and tried to explain the lesson of the resistance training, like to lean into the hard stuff. That would have been, that would have been key for me.
Amazing. And outside of like business success, you've had many seasons to your life. You look at where you're at now. What does success mean to you?
I am in the season of understanding that, like, when I feel successful is when I'm having fun in my life. When my relationships feel really good, like, those times when you're walking around, or especially because my husband's gone a lot right now. He's actually doing a fintech app, and so he's traveling all the time. And so
he has to come on too then. But
yes. So when you're alone, it's like those moments of, do I have someone that I would want to call right now? And my answer is always yes. Like, I always have somebody that I would love to talk to. I have people that I would love to go to lunch with. Like, I have people that I have such good friends in my life. That is success to me. And to be doing things that making sure that I'm still pushing my edges. Because I think that challenge is a big key to my happiness. And when I get too comfortable, I'm not happy. So am I challenging myself? Are my relationships good? Am I having fun? That's when I'm like, my family life is that good. So that's success.